in 26 communities in the Memphis Central District take to the street to protest the deplorable state of roads in their area. All right, so we are live around the world on 3news.com. My name is Martin Aseidu Dartey. Let's settle for the details of our stories now. And we are starting from Central Africa, where senior military officers in Gabon say they have seized power shortly after President Bongo's re-election was announced. 12 soldiers appeared on national television saying they were annulling the results of Saturday's poll. The Electoral Commission had given Bongo 64.27% of the vote, with his main challenger, Albert Ondo Osa, taking 30.77%. The officers also said they were dissolving all state institutions and that the country's borders were shut. This would be the 8th coup in French Africa, or countries that were colonized by France in the past 3 years. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne says Paris is following events in Gabon with the greatest attention. China has also called for all sides in Gabon to guarantee the safety of President Ali Omar Bongo. Now, the security consultant here in Ghana, Colonel Festus Aboagye, retired, says that the spate of military takeovers on the continent is a symptom of bad governance. According to him, the manipulation of elections is creating a fertile condition for these coups to fester.
These coups are happening as a symptom of things that have gone wrong seriously with governance in Africa. As you mentioned, one family or two individuals forming the dynasty have ruled this country for about 56, 57 years. Only 6 years out of Gabon's independence were not ruled by the Bongos. Now, how did they manage to do this? That's a question we need to ask. Now, the old Bongo, as we know, ruled for 41 years, from 1967. In 2009, he changed the constitution, abolished the term limits, and then continued running until he died of cardiac arrest or whatever. Now his son takes over. He suffered stroke. He still remains in office, and then he's going for a third term. Now, if what we are hearing is right, he did not get 64%. He got about 33%. And the Electoral Commissioner, or the head of the Constitutional Court, then doctored the figures and gave him 64%. Now, that is what we are saying is wrong. Because the only way that you can access power in a democracy is through elections.
And that's the voice of Festus Aboagye, Colonel retired Festus Aboagye, there on his thoughts on what's been happening in Gabon. So let's go to the phone lines now. Emmanuel Kuting is security consultant with the Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism. He's joined us via phone. Mr. Kuting, good afternoon and thank you for your time.
Martin, thank you for having me, and good afternoon to your cherished listeners.
Right. Should we be worried about the spate of coups on the continent, considering the fact that in western part of the continent, that is the West African sub-region, we have our fair share of coups? However, this is the first we are recording in Central Africa.
Rightly so. We should be worried, Martin, because coups are very contagious, especially given that even though Gabon is a Central Africa country, it borders Guinea. And Guinea is in West Africa, which is under military rule now. There's a trend that is crippling gradually in Africa. You realize the military juntas are creating some form of alliances. And if we allow these alliances to foster, then we could be in for something much, much, much bigger. And Africa could be the turf for the West and the Russians to fight their proxy war. And these are their interests. the West are not prepared to give up on their prey and exploitation of African resources. And the Russians are also trying in as much as possible to counter the Western influence in Africa, such that they would not have leverage on the resources and will come back to the negotiation table and get the sanctions imposed on Russia lifted. So if they say event casts its own shadows, like my good friend Festus Abwaji, Colonel retired, mentioned, bad governance is an antidote to some of the things that we are witnessing. And I'm just afraid that if we don't take urgent steps to look at how we can address the underlying conditions, many African countries risk falling into this phenomenon of coup d'etats.
You mentioned the primary concern of these coups having to do with the bad governance that democratically elected politicians seem to be perpetrating. So how is it that if the people are happy with the fact that the military are taking over these countries because of the poor nature of governance, we should be worried? Is it not that we should trust that the military can drive these countries back on the right path?
You know, on the flip side of it, or on the poor side of it, it's what we call the triggers. We have all witnessed military rules in our part of the world, and it didn't help us. That was why after the 1992 Constitution and Ghana was ushered into the democratic rule, many African countries followed suit and democratized. But unfortunately, due to bad governance and then constitutional coups, most of these citizens in our part of the world, especially Africa, are not happy. And you see these military coupists, they are all young officers. So they look at what is happening and take advantage of that. But look, how do we reset the system? We can only reset the system by initiatives like this. And I dare say that we need to quickly look at modalities we can get this country back to democratic rule. Not the kind of systems, not the kind of approach the regional bodies are using when some of these things happen.
Right.
And don't forget, Gabon sits at the northern part of the Sahel, and the fight against violent extremism in this area, Gabon plays a major role. So Guinea borders Gabon. So that is why we should be worried. The contagion, if we allow it to flow as it is going, the coups are becoming 1-2 million. This is the 8th in Africa in less than
3
4
years.
years.
Yeah. Okay. We will definitely, it's early days yet, but we will see how all of this plays out. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Kutin, who is a security consultant with the Africa Center for Security and Counter-Terrorism, for your thoughts on the development in coup. Meanwhile, the Ghana Baptist Convention has expressed grave concern over the instability in some African countries, especially the recent coup in Niger. The church observed that the interest of the Western countries in the natural resources of Africa contributes to the disturbances. Speaking to the media on the sidelines of the convention's 60th annual session in Ijra, the executive president, Reverend Enoch Nina, entreated African political leaders to make the right decisions to better the lives of citizens.
Being a place of violence and wars and coups and instability, that is never the desire and intention of God for any group of people anywhere. Nor is it so designed that Africa should be that place of pain. But these things happen and keep happening in our political system across the continent. And the situation in Niger spells serious complications for the whole of the continent, especially with the interests of foreign powers because of the natural resources that God has given to us as Africans. So the Church of God is concerned about this, and we will pray and hope that our political leaders who have the power to make decisions will make the right decisions.
And that's the voice of the Executive President, Reverend Enoch Nina of the Ghana Baptist Convention. Meanwhile, the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, Kathleen Addy, has reiterated that despite the Commission's resource challenges, they are committed to educating Ghanaians to remain committed to the democratic path. She was reacting to the recent coup d'etats in the West African sub-region, and with the latest being what's happening in Gabon.
We are very concerned about the democracy. We are very concerned about the instability in our sub-region because it threatens us as well. Because you know the saying, when your neighbor's beard is on fire, you have to fetch water. For us, at this point, it's not even just a saying, it's literally true. Several of our neighbors' beards are on fire, and we have to work to ensure that the fire does not cross the border into our country. And we are doing that. We have a project in the north, and we are doing a lot of work around this issue.
And that's Kathleen Addy, who is the chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education. You're still listening to 3FM 92.7. This is the Midday News. It is live from our studio here at Adesawe in Accra. On to some other big stories we are monitoring for you right here in Ghana. And authorities have beefed up security at Nsawama Doejiri in the eastern region following renewed chieftaincy conflicts. 2 persons were shot dead during a clash between rival chieftaincy factions late afternoon on Tuesday, the 29th of August, 2023. According to 3FM sources, one faction in jubilant mood in the community flared tempers from the other faction, resulting in the shootout. The Nsawama Doejiri traditional area has been under intense pressure or tension for weeks due to the chieftaincy conflict. A new chief installed by the Ochehine Osagyefo Amoatio for repairing is being resisted by the other group or the other faction. The Eastern Regional Police Command is yet to make any arrest regarding this particular development. We are told that some shots were fired. 2 persons have died as a result of this. Let's speak to Godwin Asedeba, who is our man on the beat, and he's joined us on phone. Godwin, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. What can you report as of now that we speak? Have the situation been dealt with? Has it calmed down?
All right, thank you, Martin. At the moment, I wish I was actually in the studio with you because the tension here is still a bit scary. It can be felt if we are within the premises here. But as the tension remains high, efforts are being made to engage all relevant parties to seek a peaceful resolution to the dispute. Police officials have been stationed at vantage points to avoid the deadly clash that happened yesterday, which was on August 29 on Tuesday evening. At the moment, I am at the Okwanajo Palace where the shooting happened, and the simmering chieftaincy dispute here in Adoajiri took a deadly turn, as we were told, as gun-wielding henchmen and members of the Ochima Land Protection Task Force reportedly stormed the community. The incident unfolded and they escorted a convoy representing a rival chief recently installed by the Ochime Buokwa Traditional Council, and the newly installed chief was sworn in last week. So it was just yesterday where they were making some preparations as far as the installment was under process yesterday. When they were done, that was in Chebi, then they stormed the Adoajiri community where they came to the Okwanajo Palace, and all those incidents unfolded. Now the confrontation escalated into a violent clash which marked a sporadic gunshot reverberating through the community. Now tragically, this chaotic scene resulted in the loss of 2 lives from the opposing faction, with 5 critically injured. Earlier we were told that 2 were injured, but the latest update here indicates that 5 are injured. Some are in the Sewam hospital, and some have also been transferred to Koforidua and Kolebu as well. That's those whose situation cannot be handled within the hospital. And the motivations and intentions behind this brazen incursion remain unclear, but it underscores the deep-seated tension surrounding the chieftaincy dispute around this particular region, which is the eastern region. Local authorities are scrambling to contain the situation and restore order here in the region. I've also been speaking to some people here who have been giving me updates of the people that I spoke to. Was the Abakuma Hene of Adoajiri, who has been saying that a lot of people actually struggled, to find places to hide themselves when the shooting happened, but unfortunately, the 5 who were shot were struggling from the entrance of the palace where they struggled to the inside, and some of them were bandaged while they were rushed into the hospital. But Martin, as investigations into this disturbing incident continue, they should trust us to bring them all the updates as far as this rather unfortunate incident is concerned.
Godwin, thank you so much for those updates from Sawama Doejiri, where clearly there seemed to be some tension, and as he mentioned, the police officers are trying to bring some sanity to the area. We will definitely update you in subsequent bulletins. Still on issues of disturbances, about 26 communities in the Memphis Central or the Western region are currently demonstrating over the deplorable nature of their roads. All activities have currently come to a halt as demonstrations intensify. We'll be speaking to our correspondent shortly about this particular development. But before that, let's listen to some of the concerns of the youth who have been demonstrating since last night. Lots of disturbances there. These youth are very much bent on ensuring that they get the city authorities, or at least the rural authorities, to come to their aid in fixing the roads, which have been in very deplorable state for the last few years now. And like they were chanting, no road, no vote. We'll update you shortly on that when we do get to connect to our correspondent. In a related development, and to other parts of the country, we are told that there were issues in and around Tamale District Court. So all 13 suspects who were arrested in connection with the disturbances of the Tamale District Court following a clash between police and some residents have been granted bail. The suspects were released in the late hours of Tuesday, the 29th of August, after a crunch meeting between traditional authorities and the Regional Security Council and the police. A team of police officers from the police headquarters were dispatched to Tamale by the IGP in respect of the incident. 6 persons sustained various degrees of gunshot wounds following a confrontation between the police and the youth at the Tamale District Court on Monday, the 28th of August. The youth besieged the premises of the court to demand the prosecution of one Karim Osman as an alleged drug lord. 13 persons were arrested, and the other ones, we are told, have been granted bail. Hundreds of motorbikes belonging to the youth were also seized by the police. Christopher Mwako is our correspondent. He's joined us for a quick update on this. Chris, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. What more can you report regarding this situation?
Okay, so Martin, the current situation is that even though the 13 suspects have been released, but the motorbikes that were seized as we speak, the police is unable to account for some of the motorbikes, because some of the residents who got to the police stations to pick their motorbikes were told that their motorbikes were not to be found. So fortunately, one of them has a tracker on his motorbike. So they traced the motorbike to the room of a police officer who is believed to be a CID officer. So as we speak, the regional crime officer and some police officers have moved to the home of the CID officer to pick the motorbikes to the regional police headquarters. As to why the police officer would send these motorbikes to his private residence is a question that we are yet to get answers from the police administration here in the region.
And Chris, so first of all, also talk to us about the current situation. We are told relative calm has returned to the area. Is that the case? And do you still have police presence in and around the community?
Yes, so calm has been restored because all the chiefs wanted was for the 13 persons to be released to them so that they will begin the peace process. And as we speak, the youth have been spoken to by the traditional authorities to, as it were, tone down on their agitations. The Regional Security Council also met, and they will also be meeting the youth to have a discussion with them on the need to ensure that peace continues to prevail in the Tamale metropolis. As to the injured who are receiving treatment at the Tamale Teaching Hospital, they are also responding well to treatment. Some of them have actually been discharged.
All right, Christopher Mwako, thank you for that update from Tamale, where we know that relative calm has returned to the area. However, some further investigation is being conducted by the police to get to the bottom of the disturbances, where 13 persons were arrested and have been granted bail. You're still live on 3FM 92.7. That is the dial. On to some other stories now. Former Education Minister Dr. Ekos Gabra has described the decision by the government to issue a century bond with the Ghana Education Trust Fund, GET Fund, as mortgaging Ghana's future. For Dr. Ekos Gabra, it is needless to go into the capital market to raise funds on the back of GET Fund, which will be paid over 100 years when the law establishing the fund allows for it to be source funds, to source funds independently from donor agencies virtually at no interest. He spoke earlier to 3FM News on the back of the launch of the Ghana Directory of the Scholarship and Financial Assistance.
Well, it has been mortgaged by the current government to, I believe, Chinese investors, securitized in a certain way. And so all the VAT receipts that are coming from the Ghana Revenue Authority, most of it, I don't know the percentage, goes to repay that debt. And therefore, there's not much to actually fund the GET Fund in terms of scholarships and financial assistance and library books and, vehicles and computers for our schools, which is what the GET Fund was intended for. But one of the other things the GET Fund was expected to do, which is in the GET Fund law, which have drawn the attention of the GET Fund administrators to 20 years ago, was that they were themselves to look for additional funds, not simply from the government of Ghana. But it has come to our knowledge that beyond this attempt of securitization of the GET Fund to enable a certain country to provide some short-term liquidity to the government, the Ghana Education Trust Fund authority itself has failed over the last 20 years to raise additional funds from many, many other sources. And I wrote to them at a certain point and offered my services to them for free, actually. And they didn't know how to go about it. I was told that actually I belonged to a different political party. So it was not, they couldn't take advantage of my knowledge and experience. And Ghana has suffered for that.
And you heard the voice of former Education Minister Dr. Ekos Gabra. Now we are going to the other story having to do with the communities, about some 26 different communities within the Memphis Central area in the Western region who have been demonstrating in the last few hours over the poor nature of their roads. William Evansinkum has been following the story and he's joined us for a quick chat. William, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. What's the current situation? Have the demonstrators stopped?
No, and it looks like they are not stopping anytime soon, even though
Hello, Evans.
They just want to use him as a conduit just to send a message to the president, because they are saying that they've all used every single government avenue. It has failed. Now they want the president to personally intervene, because none of the road network within that particular enclave of 26 communities, which also connect to, bigger areas like Asankagwa and Sekwi Bakwai, none of them has their road tarred, and they've had enough of that. So they want to use this particular opportunity, maybe as a final action, which they are executing just to get some answers as far as the current problem that they are facing in respect of their road is concerned.
Have they been able to hear from any government official or local authority regarding this?
Well, they're saying that all attempt to get their concerns, especially which has to do on the road address, has proven futile. For instance, they recounted a number of times that they have engaged a member of parliament, Kwache Aka, on this particular development, but failed to stem the tide. The district chief executive is also well aware of that. They have had courses to even use social media platforms to at least advertise the problem, so that there will be some level of attention shifted on it. But all those staff have failed to stem a tide. The reason they decided to hit the streets, put everything on hold as far as business or trade activities are concerned, put everything on hold and hit the street. At least if they do that, they believe that, well, one of the languages that they believe the government understands is demonstration, exactly what they are doing.
All right, William Evans Inkum, thank you for that update. And for clearly, it looks as though this is going to take a bit of time, unless there's a by-election, before probably their roads would be fixed. All right, so on to some other stories live on 3FM 92.7. There's been some issues of labor agitations, and Daniel Opoku, our labor correspondent, has joined us. We know that the last few weeks there have been some back and forth between CITAG, who are the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, who embarked on a strike. Government coerced them to get back to the classroom while negotiations continue. They didn't heed to that, and on the back of that, their salaries have not been paid. So we're told there's supposed to be a meeting between them and the National Labour Commission. Daniel Opoku has joined us for a quick update on this. Daniel, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. What's the latest regarding this tussle between CITAG and government?
Right, so the national leadership of CITAG is currently seated here, and they are waiting for the commissioners to call them to the meeting. And if you can recall, CITAG issued a statement somewhere last week asking the National Labour Commission to ask government not to withhold their salaries. So currently that is what is pertaining now, and the commissioners are yet to call the leadership of CITAG into the meeting and determine that particular case.
And what time is the meeting scheduled for, and what do we know whether government is going to turn up to meet with the CITAG executives?
It was scheduled to take place at around 11:30, but they are here and they have not been called. And we have also seen, we are yet to see any leadership from government.
Okay. And Daniel, before you take leave of us, we know that one of the spin-offs out of this tussle between the two entities is the suspension of the salaries of CITAG members. What have they told you about it? What kind of impact is that having on them?
Right, so when you speak to the leadership of CITAG, they are just not happy with government withholding their salaries. So obviously, if you work and you are not paid, clearly you are being affected. It's the reason they have seen this meeting, or they deem this meeting as extremely necessary. So for them, they would want they want the commission to make a ruling today whether government should continually be withholding their salaries or government should be compelled to pay their money to them. So the commission has a killing task today to just make a determination on this particular issue, because they have officially petitioned the commission. A failure by the commission to make that determination, one, the strike will continue. Two, it will have direct consequence of education, and already the students are writing exams. And so the commissioners must take a decision today. But we foresee the leadership of CITAG calling off the strike today in case the commission makes a ruling that is clear, and that also will convince them enough for them to call off the strike.
Thank you very much, Daniel Opoku, who is our labor correspondent, with the updates of that back and forth on a tussle between the CITAG, which is the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, and the National Labour Commission representing government. We'll update you on that in subsequent bulletins. Our website, 3news.com, has updates of all the other stories we brought to you this afternoon. My name is Martin Aseidu Dartey. Up next is the latest in the world of business.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Business Daily. Coming up, cocoa bills and dollar-denominated bond exchange programs achieve over 90% participation. We'll bring you details. Meanwhile, economist Professor John Kachi attributes the successful participation in the exchange programs to government's increased stakeholder engagements.
If you are not filing, then you are not be able to know that you have overpaid.
That have been agreed upon, and the interest rate is matched to the desire of the bondholder, so it doesn't pose any problem.
We'll hear from Professor John Gachi, senior lecturer at the UCC Business School. Plus, Ghana Revenue Authority urges public to be tax compliant to attract tax reliefs.
Filing, then you are not be able to know that you have overpaid or you are underpaid. And therefore, that is why I'm saying that the mandatory filing and mandatory filing of all taxes is very, very important.
My name is Bismarck Ausa. We'll bring you details of our headlines and many other stories shortly. Thanks for staying. Now to the details. Cocoa Board has achieved a 97% participation rate in its debt exchange program, receiving tenders worth over 7 billion cedis. The program, which ended on August 25, was launched in July this year to restructure nearly 8 billion cedis of its entities' debts. The following Business Desk report has more. According to Cocoa Board, the exchange program garnered an impressive response, with tenders surpassing 7 billion cedis, underscoring the significance of the restructuring exercise. Cocoa Board has, however, postponed settlements to September 4 this year from the initial planned August 31, a move it says was to ensure efficient processing of the new cocoa bonds. In an official statement, CalBank, handlers of the exchange program on behalf of Cocoa Board, confirmed these details, noting that almost 98% of eligible holdings participated. The statement noted that the terms of the exchange remain unchanged except for adjustments related to the new settlement date. Cocoa Board has, however, indicated that with the end of the invitation period, no further submissions, revocations, or withdrawals will be allowed. And that was a Business Desk report. In a related development, government says its US dollar-denominated bond exchange concluded on August 25 saw an impressive 92% participation rate among eligible bondholders. According to the Ministry of Finance, the success is a significant step towards post-COVID-19 economic strategies. In response to the positive turnout, government says it has extended the settlement date to September 4, 2023 to ensure a smooth transition for the new bonds. Stay tuned as we track these developments and bring you details in our subsequent bulletins. Meanwhile, economist and senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School, Professor John Gachi, has attributed the rate of participation in the recent domestic debt exchange programs to government's increased level of engagements with stakeholders.
The maturity that have been agreed upon and the interest rate is matched to the desire of the bondholder, so it doesn't pose any problem as compared to the first day where everything was in position in disguise. So this is not any peculiar case. So I think there was much time for engagement, and that the two parties have agreed upon what they want to do, and that is why we have seen the result we have seen. And that's the reason why we have not even had any agitation here and there.
This is still Business Daily with me, Bismarck Ausa. To some other story, the Ghana Revenue Authority is urging the public to be consistent in paying their taxes in order to enjoy tax reliefs. Commissioner General of the authority, Reverend Dr. Amishadai Uswamu, has stressed that the provisions are enshrined in law but can only be taken advantage of by people who are tax compliant.
Many institutions and enterprises are constantly getting refunds in millions. The challenge we have is for people understanding that refund comes from filing. So if you are not filing, then you are not be able to know that you have overpaid or you are underpaid. And therefore, that is why I'm saying that the mandatory filing and mandatory filing of all taxes is very, very important, because it is through that. Take, for example, the individuals. Many of us, our companies deduct our PAYE. And we don't file, we don't indicate that we have aged parents, which gives you a relief. You have a relief that you get if you have children in school. We don't indicate it. And therefore, you that have two aged parents alive, you are paying the same tax as the one whose parents, for me to say me, has passed away. But under normal circumstances, if you are taking care of aged parents, there are reliefs that you must get.
And that was Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Reverend Dr. Amishadai Owusu-Anwa. The Ghana Hotels Association has called on authorities to ensure they do all they can for the hospitality industry to thrive. This follows several petitions to the Public Utilities and Regulatory Authority, PURC, over their concern, but to no avail.
Speaking at a press conference to express their frustration, President of the association, Dr. Edward Akanyamike, while calling for a swift resolution to the issue, lamented the situation had left huge utility debts on the books of its members.
Very unhappy with this disheartening letter from the PURC. The association petitioned the Ghana Tourism Authority with copies to the sector minister and the Parliamentary Select Committee on Trade, Industry and Tourism to intervene in the matter. The GTA requested a meeting with the PURC mid of July 2023, but that meeting is yet to take place. We are obviously unhappy and expect the PURC to act on its directive to the Ghana Water Company for the months of February, March, April and May 2023 that has created huge debts for our members.
The association has further called on authorities to ensure they do all they can for the hospitality industry to thrive.
We trust that we have put out here this morning, or what we have put out here this morning will serve as a wake-up call to the government, ministries and agencies to pay more attention to some of the issues confronting the hotel industry and the tourism and hospitality industry at large to ensure its sustenance and growth. As we say in our association, together we can make a difference.
The Ghana Hotels Association had intended to march to the premises of the PURC to present another petition. However, plans were altered due to what they described as the non-cooperation of the police service.
And that was a report by my colleague Michael Obodu, ending Business Daily. For more business stories, please log on to 3news.com. I am Bismarck Ausa. Thanks for staying.